Saturday marks the official opening of the new Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture. We visited the museum with a man who spent 15 years working on its establishment, Georgia Congressman John Lewis. Congressman, we're sitting here at a lunch counter. What does that mean to you?
Sitting here, I tell you, mean everything to me. My first nonviolent protest was in 1960 in downtown Nashville, sitting down at a lunch counter on a stool in the local Woodworth store. So this all take me back. I grew up sitting down. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if it hadn't been for taking the seat.
And now you're sitting in a museum. A lot of people worked on it, but you've been working for 15 years to have the African American Museum of History and Culture, and now you're sitting inside of it. What does it mean to be here inside this building?
It just means everything. To walk in here, to be here, to see this magnificent museum. It's going to continue to take me back. Just walking through here, almost cried. I don't want you to make me cry.
You also spoke at the other end of this mall on the March on Washington. And when you spoke there, would you ever have imagined that there would be this kind of a monument at the other end of the mall?
No, when I spoke on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, a little more than 50 years ago, I never thought, I never dreamed that one day there would be a monument, there would be a museum telling the story and the history of African American from the days of slavery to the present.
And what is that story you want people to understand when they come here?
This story is an American story. It tells of our history, our struggle. Through segregation, racial discrimination, but much earlier, the whole system of slavery, the great migration from the South to the North, the sharecropping system that existed in the South, the denial of basic constitutional right, the right to vote, the right to get an education, that people suffered, they struggled. People were beaten, arrested, and jailed. People died. But they never gave up. They never gave in. They never became bitter or hostile. They kept the faith and they kept dreaming.
You donated some items to this museum?
I will be donating a pen, one of the pens that President Johnson used to sign the Voting Rights Act on August 6, 1965. A book that was signed by Martin Luther King Jr. and given to me will be donated to this museum, and some other items.
Tell me about that book.
Well, Dr. King gave me and signed for me his first book, Strive Toward Freedom. And one day I had it in my office in Atlanta, and I took a trip to Africa and I came back, the book was gone. But 50 years later, the book reappeared. And I think the only place for this book is to be in this museum.
When you look at yourself in the pictures here, a younger man, and you see all these friends of yours at the time, what do you see in that young man, that young John Lewis? What do you think when you see those pictures?
When I see young John Lewis and the other young people, it just makes me full of happiness and joy that we were very young, 18, 19, 20, and so much younger. We wanted to see a better day. We wanted to end segregation and racial discrimination. And as some of these people that I see in these photographs, films, did not hear. They didn't live to see this day. They didn't live to see an African American become president of the United States.
What's the message to young African Americans who didn't experience this firsthand, who grew up maybe knowing that they're, seeing the first African American president? What does this museum speak to them?
I believe this museum is saying to those young people, not just African American, but all Americans, that you too can dream, you too can overcome. You may be arrested and jailed or beaten, but you must never ever give up, never lose hope, never become bitter. And as Dr. King would say, never hate, for hate is too heavy a burden to bear.
When you spoke on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, you said, get in the streets, you get in and stay in the streets. You said, wake up, America. We cannot stop, and we will not and cannot be patient. A real sense of urgency. Where are things now in terms of urgency in the fight for social justice?
Well, we have come a distance. We've made a lot of progress. And when people tell me nothing has changed, I feel like saying, come and walk in my shoes. I will show you change. But there's still this need for us to wake up and bring America together. For we're one people. We're one family. We all live in the same house, the American house, the world house. And it doesn't matter whether we're black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American. We're one people, and we all must be involved in the struggle that we were involved in during the 50s and the 60s. White people and black people suffered together. They died together to bring about change, to bring down those signs that said white waiting, colored waiting, white men, white women, colored women. Those signs are gone, and they will not return. The only places we will see those signs today will be in a book or in a museum like this museum.
Speaking of getting inside of John Lewis's shoes, there's a picture of you here on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Tell me about what happened then. What was happening in that picture?
Well, on March 7, 1965, a group of us, about 600 of us, wanted to walk from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery to dramatize to the nation and to the world that people of color wanted to register to vote. We were walking in an orderly, peaceful, nonviolent fashion. We came to the highest point on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, crossing the Alabama River. Down below we saw a sea of blue, Alabama state troopers. And a man spoke up, the major, said this was an unlawful march, it would not be allowed to continue. I give you 3 minutes to disperse and return to your homes or to your church. And a young man from Dr. King's organization walking beside said, Major, give us a moment to kneel and pray. And the major said, troopers, advance. I said, Major, may I have a word? And he said, there will be no word. And they came toward us, beating us with nightsticks, trampling us with horses, releasing the tear gas. I was hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick. Had a concussion at the bridge. I thought I was going to die. I thought I saw death. But weeks later, 2 weeks later, we walked from Selma to Montgomery. And President Johnson made one of the most moving speeches any American president had made in modern time on the whole question of voting rights or civil rights. And at the end of that speech, he said, and we shall overcome.
You recently wrote a piece in the Huffington Post about that march from Selma to Montgomery and used it as a way to talk about where we are today. Tell me a little bit about that march then and the way it makes you think about the march today.
The march of 50 years ago changed America forever. There were hundreds and thousands of people coming from all across America. Priests, rabbis, nuns, ministers, lawyers, doctors, teachers, white, African American, Asian American, Latinos, Native American, all coming together. It was orderly, peaceful. We were picking them up, laying them down. It was like a holy walk. And that led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act. There's still a need for people to use nonviolent protest. We should never, ever give up on the right to protest of what is right.
You mentioned nonviolence. Martin Luther King and the Montgomery story, that comic book that inspired you when you were growing up. In that comic book, it talks about loving thy neighbor. It's a strong part of the nonviolent message that even the people who are hitting you and beating you deserve your love. Where is that message now?
That message is still embedded in many of us. Many young people, students, elementary school students, middle school, high school, college students, are reading about the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. I think we have to teach all of our children, and those of us not so young, that the way of love is a better way. Just respect the dignity and the worth of every human being. We need to continue to get it out there. And if we get it right, I really believe if we get it right in America, maybe it can serve as a model for the rest of the world.
Is that message of loving thy neighbor, is it being lost a little bit?
I think there's some forces in America trying to take us back to another period, but we must not let that happen.
You see that in the presidential campaign this year?
I see it very much so, that there are forces that want to divide us, and we must not be divided. We've come so far, we made so much progress by working and building together. Too many of my friends, too many of my colleagues, young people that I knew in '63 and '64, white and African American, died together. And we must not let their death be in vain.
Donald Trump at one point questioned whether Barack Obama was born in the United States. How did you react to that?
I just thought when you first mentioned whether President Barack Obama was born in America or born in some other place, I thought it was shameful. Every reasonable person knew that he was born in America, in Hawaii, not in Kenya. And he just wouldn't give up on it. And even now, he's not really apologizing or saying that I'm sorry. When you make mistakes, when you're wrong, you should admit you're wrong and ask people to forgive you.
Donald Trump has also said that Barack Obama was such a bad president that it'll be a long time until there's another African-American president.
I think President Barack Obama been a good president. I have met every president since President Kennedy. And I think Barack Obama must be listed on one of the best. This young man has been so inspiring, not just the people in America, but the people all around the world.
All right, John Lewis, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.